I am reading the Planned Deception by Constance Cumbey. This is chapter 10, The Protocols of Zion. Quote, the massed forces of the old age will go on to destroy each other in a massive mutual venting of long pent-up aggression, unquote. Peter Le Mesurier, The Armageddon Script, page 237. If one piece of propaganda stands out as an inciter of anti-Judaic sentiments, it is the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. From Russian pogroms to the shattering glass of Kristallnacht, from the cross-lit Ku Klux Klan rallies to modern bigots come Christians, their disturbing influence continues to this day. Those dead in the Auschwitz ovens bear silent testimony to their efficacy as a propaganda tool. To truly understand origin and purpose of the protocols, one must bear in mind the strategy of those orchestrating the new age. One half of the plan is to infiltrate all segments of the opposition, weakening them from within. The other half concerns the disposition of remaining stubborn religious orthodoxies who are unmoved by the stylish infiltration. Peter Le Mesurier said it well when he observed the old agers would defeat each other. Succinctly, the remaining Orthodox will be pitted off against the remaining Orthodox or of other target groups. Such a strategy is diabolical genius of the highest order. People busy fighting each other will not be resisting a common enemy such as that posed by the new order. Hitler planned to destroy European and world Jewry. He also wanted to abolish Christianity. See appendix reprint of 1930s newspaper article describing such Hitlerian plans. Hitler could not have done the job alone, nor could he have accomplished it with only the help of his Gestapos and his armies. Hitler needed and received citizen support. It was a system of neighbor spying on neighbor that ultimately guaranteed the success of his military machine and final solutions. This required enthusiastic citizen support. Those not captivated by the mind control and meditative techniques so popular before the war were motivated by a rabid hate campaign directed against the Jews. The Jews were made scapegoats for all the post-World War I ills of German society. Hitler satisfied many beyond a reasonable doubt that his allegations were true. He needed to prove that there were no good Jews. The proofs he offered were the Protocols of Zion. They received the widest possible circulation under his regime. There are those among us who are distributing the protocols with equal vigor today. As a farm belt crisis plagues the Midwestern United States, it is exploited by many pushing a unique mixture of religious fanaticism, fear, and occultism known as quote-unquote identity. Farmers are repeatedly told that their problems are caused by Jewish bankers. Furthermore, they believe the Jews are not even the true Jews, that they, as the lost tribes of Israel, are the true Israel. In an ugly repeat of history, the Protocols of Zion are offered as proof of malevolent aims. Among people facing desperate and straitened financial circumstances, the hysteria grows. Scapegoat theories become believable. The need for final solutions logically follows. I would like to remind you that this was in 1985. And I'm just saying, with the whole conspiracy movement, which I have actually delved into quite a lot, this is a big part of it. I'm unpause, even though I didn't say pause. Simultaneously, we see large population segments, particularly among the economically inflicted areas, beginning to believe stories denying the Hitlerian Holocaust. The cancer of this mentality has become such that the traces of it have even filtered down to genuinely Christian publications as the Herman Otten's Christian News. Now that the unthinkable is beginning to gain respectability among conservative Christian and political groups, it is prudent to examine their attitudinal roots. The Bible spoke of the beast whose deadly wound was healed. Those who read my first book, The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow, know that I concluded the beast had to be a revival of Nazism, which, in its turn, was a revival of demonism. Rather than Adolf Hitler, this new system would be headed by the Antichrist and his false prophet. Today, the New Age movement gains political momentum. At the same time, we see a resurgence of a hate campaign against Jews. On the surface, the movement may not appear to be connected. However, if one investigates deeply, he will find that there indeed are links. He will find that many of the more simple-minded hate groups have been egged on by the more intellectual occultists, such as Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. Pause. I'm just going to pause right here. I remember back in the day when I was watching a lot of conspiracy stuff, I kept seeing Jordan Maxwell. Okay? Maybe some of you are familiar with him. And you know what? He loved Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. Okay? The conspiracy movement is full of people like that. The truther movement. Not all, but a lot. And I know I'm going to get so much heat for this. Almost as much as the Little Caesar nuggets. The knives are going to come out. Unpause. Such as Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, Yuliana Glinka, and Arthur Koestler. It is propaganda they have fomented that in turn has helped fuel the identity movement. Pause again. If you watch John Collins, who I always recommend on his Leaving the Message channel, he is doing so much research on this Christian identity movement, which is extremely connected to the Aussie Nays and the KKK. Identity and its close cousin, Christian technocracy, feature the very same, like Elon Musk, that Lance is promoting, and people on the right are thinking thinking Elon Musk is a good guy. He's not a Christian, but he is about technocracy. Sorry. Identity and its close cousin, Christian technocracy, feature the very same conspiracy theories advanced by the German Nazis. Identity ranges from the obviously recognizable Reverend Richard Butler and the Aryan Nations organization to the only slightly more subtle Pat Brooks and her New Puritan library. Ironically, many of these people legitimately believe themselves to be fighting occultism. They are unaware that they themselves have incorporated many of its most important points in their own belief systems. This was likewise the case with many Germans. Nazi General Stroop led the raid on the Warsaw Ghetto, inflicting incredible death and destruction on recalcitrant Jews. At the conclusion of the war, he shared a Polish prison cell with a national freedom fighter. The cellmate was a lawyer by profession. Astonished that he was sharing space with the leader of the opposition, he decided to make the most of the opportunity. He observantly listened to all Stroop shared with him. There, Stroop proudly recounted Himmler's expedition to the Tibetan Dalai Lama. He gave a version of Jesus' travels very similar to that contained in the Aquarian Gospel. Nevertheless, he straight-facedly blamed a combination of Jews, Freemasonry, international bankers, and Jesuits for Germany's defeat, as well as his own forthcoming execution. Stroop was not particularly well educated. It is possible that he was genuinely ignorant of the similarities between his own belief system and the Freemasons whom he condemned. Freemasonry functioned then, as it does now, as a sort of occult whipping boy. What many proponents of the protocols do not understand is that they are a major tool of occultists used to achieve occult domination of society. They were used for that purpose in World War II, and they are being used in the same manner today. What those hearing them do not know is that they did not originate from a Jewish Congress. They were instead initiated by pledged Luciferians, Theosophists, probably acting out of their inclinations as Theosophists. Those spreading them from country to country likewise shared an illuminated or occult worldview. From their inception to their translation by Victor Marsden to their unfortunate appearance in the Detroit area Dearborn Press after a Henry Ford importation of them to the United States of America. Yeah, Henry Ford, the Hitler-loving Nazi sympathizer. Unpause. This chapter will present evidence to show their total unreliability, except to prove the seriousness of occult aims. So-called protocols of the learned elders of Zion. Pause. I already said it. This is going to make people mad. I'm sorry, but I'm reading it. I have people, many send copies to me in all earnestness, telling me that this was part of the conspiracy I had overlooked. They are, but not in the way that their proponents think. Pat Brooks, who purports to expose the occult as do I, actually cites them as a legitimate source. This could be excused as ignorance, but for the fact that she makes common cause with the identity movement. Further, she is nearly as well read on New Age materials as I am. As such, she knows their true anti-Semitic nature. What are these so-called protocols of the learned elders of Zion, and how did they come into circulation? The protocols purport to be Jewish plans for world domination and the destruction of the Goyim, Gentiles. More likely, they are carefully disguised occult plans for world domination and the destruction of all but blonde, blue-eyed pagans. No lesser an occult figure than Madame Blavatsky herself was present at the birth of the protocol circulation. Just who composed them remains a mystery. But at any rate, Juliana Glinka, a personal companion to Madame Blavatsky, claimed to have found them and passed them on to governmental authorities. Of their origins, historian James Webb says, "There is no possibility of doubting the date of the forgery or that the protocols were composed somewhere in France. Their first publication was in St. Petersburg in Khrushchevian anti-Semitic paper Znamya during August-September 1903. It is probable that the forgery entered Russia with Juliana Glinka, 1884 to 1918, the daughter of a Russian diplomat who spent her time in Paris and St. Petersburg and was a theosophist devoted to Madame Blavatsky. It is possible to identify Juliana Glinka in one of the best-known books of the occult revival, and when it becomes clear what sort of person she was, the historian of the occult at once grows pensive." Helena Blavatsky herself had strong anti-Semitic tendencies. On one occasion, Webb recounts that she wrote a letter to a New York paper complaining of their reporting of Russian persecution against Jews. Webb documents that she also was responsible for at least one anti-Semitic tract. The protocols were later translated into English by one Victor Marsden, a man with heavy ties to the English occult or Illuminist movement. They were circulated in the United States of America by one of the wealthiest anti-Semites of all time, Henry Ford. Henry Ford was responsible for United States circulation of the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. He, too, had his occult biases. He frequently said he believed in reincarnation. Moreover, he had a close friendship with and deep admiration for Thomas Alva Edison, an early and faithful theosophist. The Theosophical Society naturally applauded Mr. Ford's occult beliefs. Henry Ford states his faith. Quote, Mr. Henry Ford seems to lose no opportunity to state his belief in reincarnation, and this, one would think, has gone a long way toward acquainting the world with reincarnation and karma. Unquote. From the Theosophist, Notes and Comments, December 1938, page 239. James Webb, Cambridge scholar and author of The Occult Establishment, notes, when Juliana Glinka passed to her protector the manuscript known as The Secret of the Jews, she was not only fulfilling her function as a good secret agent and loyal anti-Semite, she was probably also proceeding in accordance with her private inclinations as an occultist and a member of the Theosophical Society. Okay, pause one more time. I'm just going to insert this right now because I know about the things. I know about the things about the rabbis and the Kabbalah and all that stuff. I know. I'm familiar. But I also know from looking into Alice Bailey and the New Age and stuff, they're extremely anti you know what. So it gives me pause, and I am not on either side, and people will call me names right now. They'll call me the pro-Z word or something. And I feel very much in the middle between anti, and I know that a lot of people that want to show the true things about the no laws and the Kabbalah and all that. We should know about it. But there's a really fine line in between where you see that, you see it. Okay? But I'm not going to the side where it's like they're behind everything either. I've just seen so much stuff about like the New Age and the Hitler and the Nazis, the Cold War, how we had Nazi underground networks all over the world. So anyway, that's just me putting in my 2 cents. Okay. Of the anti-Semitism of Theosophy itself, Webb comments, quote, Theosophy, its doctrine, its foundress, and its adherents can all be shown to have been involved in racism, conspiracy theories, and at least one anti-Semitic tract. This tract is of considerable importance as it is one of the earliest anticipations of the secret of the Jews and the protocols. In order to understand how the Theosophical Society could have reprinted it in 1888, we must return to Madame Blavatsky and her doctrine, The Occult Establishment, page 226. The Juliana Glinka Webb discusses is the same Juliana Glinka mentioned in the edition of the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion as the patriotic lady who discovered them and felt it her Christian duty to pass them along to responsible people in positions of authority. This same Juliana Glinka was a theosophist devoted to Madame Blavatsky. Sometimes direct evidence has come to my attention in amusing ways. James Webb's work, The Occult Establishment, was the source of information. I gave over a Southwest Radio Church interview to the effect that the protocols had probably been a direct product of occult interests. Some irate anti-Semites they would deny this, as they deny the Jewish people are true Semites, decided to try and convince me of my error. They sent me an aged copy of the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. There it was, in the introduction, a lengthy and glowing statement of Juliana Glinka's contribution to the circulation of these protocols. Until then, I had to settle for secondary evidence, and Webb's intellectual inferences that their sources of emanation had to be Madame Glinka. Victor Marsden. Victor Marsden, the man who translated the protocols into English, was himself hardly bias-free. He was a member of an English group dedicated to white supremacy known as the Britons. The founder of this group was Henry Hamilton Beamish. According to Webb, Beamish was influenced by the extreme South African anti-Semitism he encountered during the Boer War. Beamish's own patriotism was frightfully thin. Adopting the very techniques of occultism that he attributed to the Jews, he fled his native Great Britain to, quote, surface at Hitler's side, unquote. Such was the character of the individual circulating the Protocols of Zion. Maybe they could more accurately be named the Protocols of the Learned Masters of Shambhala. The scriptures say, "Let God be true and every man a liar." Were Christians only to consider the plain words of the New Testament proscribing anti-Semitism, they would not fall into these occult traps designed to pit one target group against another. The Apostle Paul, also an object of occult hatred, summed it up well when he told the early Christians to boast not against the branches. For I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. As concerning the gospel, they are enemies for your sakes, but as touching the election, they are beloved for the Father's sakes. For the gifts and calling of God are without repentance. That's a hard pill to swallow for some people. Chapter notes. Here are all the chapter notes. Wow. And the next chapter is chapter 11. Syncretism in the Church. Thank you for listening or watching.
Run.
There's just one name that can keep you out of hell, and it's the name of Jesus. The name of Jesus.